Here we go. Live. Let me tell you something. I have, I think if I go pull up a certain website right now, you could look at my cart on this specific store where they sell a little digital teleprompter that would mirror my computer screen and put it right in front of the lens right here. So I could look there. It's like a second display that I can see through. I might just have to pull the trigger on that because I'm looking down here at the computer because that's where I can see myself, and it doesn't look good on the camera. But first world problems. All right. Let's jump back into it. So this week, principle of the week. Welcome to week 1 of 2, where I make everybody at the gym uncomfortable talking about your relationships and your feelings. So, principle this week is the human body needs healthy relationships in order to survive and thrive. So, why do we talk about this? How is this related to your fitness? Okay, well, it is related to your fitness because when we look at fitness, if you've been around here more than 2 seconds, you know that we're not just concerned about your ability to squat and run fast and lose or gain body mass, any of that stuff. Health is a full picture. Your physicality and things that deal with your physical nature, that's what we're after, right? And so you think, okay, this interpersonal relationship stuff, what does that have to do with my body, my physical body? Well, stress is like the critical thing here. Stress, and I'm even gonna go on the other end of the spectrum, your joy. Those are the real critical components. So when we look at our interpersonal relationships and we look at our emotions, we're going next week, they really are what we see as the maybe the two of the key ways. I'm not going to exclude it to that. Two of the key ways that we can start to get after some of the stress that we experience, right? So I said on one end, these can be massive drivers of stress. But on the other end, if we are doing really well in these two categories, they can be massive, massive assets, right? If we, have some self-control, if we have some control over our emotions, and if we're actually working towards experiencing joy on the emotional side, and then really in between our relationships with other people, that can be a huge asset. So your body has physical repercussions for those things, right? We look at the state of stress that your nervous system is under, and dude, what has more effect on that than the way you're dealing with other people, right? You lock yourself in a room, and there are certain stresses that you are never going to encounter if you are all alone by yourself. Now, there's also, again, on the other side of the spectrum, massive pieces of life that you're not going to have access to as well, right? You're just going to be siloed into this kind of cold, dark, dead life. And we don't want that for anybody. So, little bit of a rationale for talking about your relationships and your feelings. Again, kind of going through, I should shut my sound off here. Going through some of the questions that I asked this week. So, first question was, do you regularly reconcile conflicts? Behind that question is a presupposition that there's going to be conflicts in your relationships, right? And that, again, the aim is not to lock yourself into a room and isolate yourself. The aim is how can we really foster health in our relationships? And man, a massive piece of that is being really good at being able to deal with and work through conflicts, right? So if you ask yourself this kind of assessment question, I don't know if I actually said that, we're asking assessment questions again, and you look and see, okay, do I have these experiences, right? Am I reconciling often, right? And the pitfalls are kind of on two different sides. One would be I'm getting in a lot of conflict and a lot of it is unresolved, right? Got another question later in the week about that. And the other side would be, hey, I'm not dealing with anything, right? I'm not engaging in things that could become conflicts because I don't want to go there, right? And that's not really a solution. Most of the time that stuff's going to pile up and come back to explode at some point, right? So if you can just look and say, hey, is this happening? Yes or no, right? If yes, then great, you're probably in a pretty good spot. And if no, for one of those two reasons, hey, this is kind of a marker to let's get working on something there. On the flip side, do you regularly express gratitude in your relationships, right? This is one of the ways that we can really work towards the net positive side of relating with other people. If you see this thing happening, right, not only are they going to, the person you're expressing some kind of thankfulness or gratefulness to, not only are they going to receive something super valuable from you, giving that is actually a great thing for you as well, right? And one of the ways to keep stress low and actually keep good stuff high, there's probably better terms for me to use than good stuff, but you get what I'm saying. Do you have unresolved conflicts? So back to the first question, right? Are you reconciling often? But then hey, if you're not, is there stuff out there that, one of the ways that we kind of teased this out was if you saw a certain person who maybe you don't see very often, who you have some unresolved conflict with, would that engagement be kind of weird when you see them, right? Because there's this thing underlying that you haven't really dealt with that immediately is going to, make you anxious, make you nervous, that sort of stuff, right? And man, people can be plagued by this kind of stuff for years, dare I say lifetimes, right? So a huge, massive piece of having health in relationship is clearing those accounts, right? Being able to have reconciliation, being able to repent and forgive, and be restored in relationship with people, right? Now, this last question, the one that I asked today, requires a little backstory, right? So the question is, hey, do you value going fast or do you value going far? So a little cryptic. There's a saying, I wish I knew who I could attribute this saying to, but the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Basically saying, hey, if you want to prioritize speed and efficiency, most of the time, do the thing by yourself, be accountable to nobody else, take responsibility for nobody else, and you're probably going to accomplish the thing the quickest, right? And I would say this principle needs to be applied all over the place, right? There's times when we need to prioritize speed. So hey, if the garbage truck is pulling up to my house and I don't have the can out in the spot where it needs to be, I probably need to sprint my butt out there and do it, right? Whereas most of the times during the week, hey, I'm going to give my kids that responsibility. Hey, dude, grab that trash bag, take it out there, and on Sunday night, move the garbage can to where it needs to go to get picked up on Monday morning, right? Just one example. So the downfall would be, hey, if you're always kind of set on, that sort of mentality where you got to do it because you're the only one who can do it right, for example, if you've ever had that thought, it's very limited, right? The ceiling is really low if you're a one-man show in every aspect of your life, right? Versus, hey, if we want to do something big, if we want to do something with a greater effect, there is a lot of power in even taking it to an extreme. If you look at institutions versus what individuals can do, like the power of an institution is massive, can be massive, can last for generations, right? And I think we, in this current cultural moment, we get this a little confused with, the prevalence of personal brands on social media, right? So arguably the biggest guy on the internet right now, Mr. Beast, you look at him and you might be confused to say like, hey, this guy it's his thing, right? He is the face of this thing. It's this massive brand built upon him. But here's the reality. While he started all this completely by himself, in his dorm room with his computer, there's no way that he would be who he is today, his channels and his businesses, without building a team of people around him to be able to do that, and like that just kind of pulls the curtain back on even some of these massive individuals. Even those things, like it's a lie to believe that, hey, they're doing that all on their own, right? And it's pretty rare to see somebody, do something even, a fraction of that magnitude, completely on their own, right? And so I'll throw myself out there. I'm definitely way more drawn to and think more in the lines of, okay, what can I take personal responsibility for? There's like a level of that is true. There's a piece that, hey, we all need to be taking personal responsibility and being accountable to ourselves for many, many things in life. But if that's all we ever do, there's a very low ceiling on what we can do and really how effective we can be all alone, right? So it's like I gave the example of, hey, coaching the classes here, right? Over the 5 years that we've been open, I really have done a far majority of that. And to have somebody else coach a class, there's a pretty high bar, like pretty high prerequisites to being able to do that, right? And going through the work of training somebody to do that stuff, like that takes a whole heck of a lot of time, right? And it's a lot faster, a lot easier if, there's a class come in 20 minutes, right? For me just to be the one to go, give my hour of time to go do that thing, right? But then when you look at, okay, times 4 classes a day, times year over year over year, like that ends up limiting what I can do as a person, right? Because I'm doing that. And I don't know who is responsible for this. I take in a lot of information and I retain a good amount of it and am terrible at citing where it came from. But I've heard some people say before that if you have, any given task, so let's say it's coaching a 1 hour class, right? if you could train somebody to do that thing, and it takes you even up to 10 times the amount of time that task takes to be able to get them up to speed, to be able to hand it off and let them do it, it's worth it in the long run to do that, right? Because you think, okay, if it's, there's a little bit of nuance here when we're talking about coaching a class. It's like every day is going to look different, right? But it's like, all right, today we've got some bench press, we've got some biking, some pull-ups, and some jump roping, all right? To take 10 hours. If I said, okay, could I, in 10 hours, teach somebody everything they need to know about teaching people how to bench press, different things to look for, different ways to modify for certain needs? Could I teach somebody how to, coach a class, right? How to lead a group of people through some exercise, right? Could I teach them, hey, here's a pull-up, here's what we're looking for, here's some regressions and progressions, and, in 10 hours, could I teach somebody what they need to know to be able to effectively do that? Well, yeah, I could, right? So now, that's just one example of, hey, it takes some, again, interpersonal relationship to do that type of work, and now all of a sudden I've multiplied that knowledge. I've multiplied the effectiveness, handing that over to somebody, equipping them, making them more valuable of a human being, right? And it's worth doing, right? So if you're like me, and you're drawn to just hey, get the thing done, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, work harder, do the thing. I know that for myself, I need to, constantly be, pulled back into, all right, how can I look at this thing differently? How can I include other people in this? How can I, help develop other people? And yeah, that's really a much better aim. Cool. Wow. Look at that. I don't know how long I was talking about that, but longer than I thought. Oh, well, shouldn't be surprised. With our training, we started a new little cycle here. So, in one way, we started something new. In another way, we're still, ramping up on some other stuff. So I'll touch on that in a second, but new, 8-rep maxes on back squat and bench press this week. Again, those are kind of setting some baselines, establishing loads that we're going to use, and, take those moving forward, with the conditioning stuff. So if you, are feeling a little beat down, it's by design. Okay. So, specifically Alex and I, and a handful of other dudes, are kind of following along with this. We're preparing for this competition coming up in, is it 2 weeks? Yeah, less than 2 weeks. Where we're going to have, I think it's 4 events that we got to do over the course of however many days, right? So the last competition we did, the CrossFit Games Open, it's 1 workout a week, right? You kind of can structure the week to, peak on 1 day, right? Whereas this test is, hey, can you do 4 workouts similar to that, and realistically more challenging than that, and do them pretty much back to back, right? Be at high output, high performance, with a bigger, more robust, more concentrated test. And so because of that, that's really not how we train most of the year. And it's, I would say, for the average person who is not preparing, for anybody really, who, if you're not, ramping up into that type of, peak competitive state, state, we don't need to prepare for that, right? I say often we don't need to run from the bear every day, right? There's a very specific type of output that we want to have access to, we want to be able to touch, and there's huge benefits from doing that. You highly value intensity, but there's a volume component to it that it's not good to be there all the time, right? So I would say this is probably one of the this week and kind of into the first half of next week, really maybe the biggest dose of just kind of volume and intensity that we probably do all year long, right? So if you're like me and currently you're feeling a little sore and beat down, again, it's by design, right? So I've put in, I'm kind of looking at this week, the 5 workouts that I've got in for this week. There's really 4 of the 5 that are like the type of workout that I might program like once a week for us normally. So just to, kind of show and give example to like, hey, this is, a little bit abnormal. This is not how, I think people should train most of the time. And, we're trying to elicit a certain response, right? So, another tough workout tomorrow, followed by this upcoming week, probably, Monday, Tuesday, maybe a little bit into Thursday, similar stuff. But then, so the following Wednesday, you can look at a calendar and sort this all out. The following Wednesday is the day that, those workouts are going to be released. So we're going to have kind of a deload going into those because, hey, even if you're not participating, you will participate because I'm going to try to program some of them in class so we can all, partake. Don't worry, modified, scaled as always, but going to program those in. So if you think, hey, kind of keep ramping up through like the middle of next week and then basically taking a week to kind of taper off. So, essentially, it's not doing nothing, but it's doing workouts in a way that are not going to have what you might call high session cost. Okay. So, this one I can cite Dr. Kelly Starrett, and I think he's the, one who coined that term. So high session cost would be, hey, you walk away from that and, you're going to have some ramifications from that, right? You're probably going to be sore, and you're probably going to have a longer recovery from that, right? But there's certain things that we can do where you walk away feeling friggin' better than you walked in. You don't feel beat down. You get some good sleep that night, and you wake up the next morning. You're like, man, I am just ready to roll, right? That is what we'll be aiming for the few days leading up to, all right, here's where we want to give it our all, right? So, looking at Alex and I, right, this is kind of like the furthest we can go with our fitness level, right? We partake in the competitive aspect of it, and it's like, even at our absolute best, we're going to find ourselves in the, top single digits percentage wise as far as, worldwide people participating in this stuff. But we're people who advance on to the next round. It's literally, like fractions of a percent, right? There's, in, our region, there's 40 dudes, 40 dudes get to, go on to the next stage. And we're like, there's a massive gap between the single digit percentage, right? There's a couple workouts in the open or top 1%, but the gap between those 40 guys and the bottom of that 1% is massive, right? So this is kind of like the peak of what we're able to, do and test ourselves. So kind of trying to get ourselves ready to do that as best as possible, right? And I think it's good to do this, have some cyclical nature, where, hey, once a year, let's prime ourselves, to go for it. So that is right around the corner. Other than that, men's group continuing. So we initially set out to and had prepared for a little 4-week course. And last week was the last of the 4 weeks, but we've got so much good momentum going with it that we're going to keep it rolling, keep our meeting at 5 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Who would have thought that I could get a group of dudes excited to wake up super early on Saturday mornings and come in and, chop it up. But here we are, right? So we're going to keep that going. Diving into some other topics. We're kind of trying to, in the first 4 weeks, making this argument that, hey, it is important to your discipleship that you take care of your body, right? And that you see this as a piece of your responsibility, and that you take dominion over your physical nature. Because we live in a time where our work and our livelihoods doesn't necessarily require it. You can fulfill a lot of other responsibilities, dare I say, maybe all your other responsibilities, by sitting behind a computer most of the day, right? So kind of taking a turn away from that to say, hey, we want to convince you that this is important. Here's why. Now to, dig in a little deeper into, okay, I'm convinced, gosh, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know how to, lead this out. I don't know how to, actually do the work, boots on the ground type of stuff, which really is, what our principles of health boil down to. This is the boots on the ground stuff. So tomorrow we're going to dig into more of that stuff. So it's kind of an open invite, right? If you're interested in coming to hang out with us, 5:00 Saturday morning, we'll be here, right? I think that's all. Happy April. Hopefully you didn't get fooled on Monday, or maybe you did and it was funny and it was great. Okay. I think that's all.